Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you very, very much, as always, for taking the time to join me. And today I'm joined by founder of bestcardeals.com, Lloyd Hecht, who is here to help us navigate the sometimes thorny and quite unenjoyable process of buying a car, which is something that most of us have the pleasure or not to do in our lives, sometimes multiple times, of course. Lloyd has been in the automotive industry since 1978 and knows all too well that the industry has a bad rap, has a bad stigma, and that the experience of buying a vehicle is kind of like going to the dentist. And Lloyd has helped many, many friends and family through the process of purchasing a vehicle. And the more that he did this, the more that he saw that there was a genuine need for people to become more educated in the process in this important area. Now, Lloyd wants to teach people how to make this a great experience. Many people ask why Lloyd would want to teach others how to buy a vehicle, and the answer for him is simple: to help people understand how to select and buy a vehicle and have it be a great experience and to feel good about the deal that they received. He does this through an educational program that includes coaching for success. And on a bit of a personal note, Lloyd and I met somewhat by chance on the mastermind community that we are both part of, when he was instrumental in creating a weekly accountability group that we call Feet to the Fire, that has been going on now for around about 6 months at the time of recording, where we get together every Friday, and Lloyd is the man who sets it all up. Lloyd is the guy that does the technology. Lloyd is the guy that leads the conversations. Lloyd is the time ninja who keeps us all on our toes and tells me to basically shut up when I've blown my time slot, which happens basically every single week. And that's exactly what I need. But the accountability group, I tell you folks, has been an absolute godsend. And that is primarily down to the tremendous work that Lloyd and the rest of the team have put in. So I am absolutely delighted to say, Lloyd, thank you very, very much for joining me today, my friend.
No, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
I'm delighted to talk about this because when we started to get together, the fun thing about the accountability group is that we're in a situation where we've got like 7 or 8 members. Some of them are kind of fleeting and transient and such, but we're all from completely different backgrounds. And even though we have, we have, say, for example, a couple of writers in there that they're from completely different genres and doing what they're doing. And then we have someone who says, I want to help people get better at buying a car. And the very first time that we had chatted, I thought that's so fascinating that there hasn't been something in the industry, agnostic to the industry though, like not Toyota trying to say this is the best way to buy a Toyota, or Hyundai or Ford or whomever, but someone saying, I've been doing what I've been doing for so long. I don't like the experience that I have, that my people have, in terms of family and friends, like I mentioned on the bio. So tell me a bit about your background in the automotive industry that got you to the point where you said, I have to do something about this.
Yeah, so thanks. So, as you mentioned, I've been in automotive one way or another since 1978. I started off in the aftermarket industry back in the late 70s and the 80s. Cars didn't even have a radio in them when they came from the factory, and we would put that in aftermarket. People would decide, do I want an AM radio or an AM FM radio? Maybe upgrade to a stereo with two speakers or an
Wow.
eight-track player, right?
Yeah.
So that changed over the years and through the 90s, where, CD players, cell phones, keyless entry with alarms and remote controls. So I
Yeah.
went through all of that growth, uh, 70, late 70s, 80s, 90s. Uh, in 2000, I went to work at a dealership as a salesperson. I spent 1 year in a dealership, and a salesperson came in and said they were from autotrader.com and wanted us to list our cars online. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And this was, people, Priceline was selling cars at that point, and they would fax a request into the dealership, and you would fax back a quote.
Yeah.
Uh, and I asked the salesperson, because I didn't like being in the dealership, having to be in a retail location every day. I was used to being on the road, going to dealers. So I said, what is your job pay? And he told me, I said, you're going to get paid that for just going around and getting dealers to list their cars online? And and this is when people were saying, "Oh, the internet's going to go away," right?
Yeah.
See how that happened. So I went to work for autotrader.com, and it kind of made a little twist in my career. I moved from working on the cars and working with the dealerships to getting in the advertising space
Yeah.
and the merchandising of vehicles. After that, I worked at a company called Contact at Once, which was brought chat to the websites. So the from like 2000 through recently, I worked, in the advertising space with merchandising the vehicles. Um, but all the time over the years, since I did know dealers and worked in space, friends and family would always ask me, "Hey, can you help me know if I'm getting a good deal?" Everybody wants, it's one of those things where when there's negotiating involved, people don't know if they're getting a good deal.
Yeah.
And they just want to feel good about it. And the car dealers are they're the best negotiators in our country, right? They're professional negotiators. That's all they do all day. So I always thought there could be a business helping people, but my customers up until 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, were always car dealers. And I figured if they found out I did this, they wouldn't be too happy about it. And I actually could lose my real job, which was putting money on the table.
Yeah.
So, like I said, about 3 years ago, I made the decision I didn't care anymore. And I was just going to start to put the business together. And I started working on it and took some time, but here we are now. I think I started it in 2022 was when I made that decision.
Yeah.
We finally launched it in February of 2025, and we've helped some people already, and it's just a great feeling. We simplify it by just helping them understand what makes up the deal,
Yeah.
so they feel like they're on a level playing field, and we provide the tools to do that.
Yeah, do you know, I was thinking this morning on my workout. I was out for a run this morning just in preparation for the conversation today, and I was thinking, like, what industries have genuinely seen a metamorphosis, some sort of positive transformation in their existence. And I was thinking about Virgin, so Virgin, I've read a couple of Richard Branson's books, and he basically says we go into a market that is, in our opinion, underperforming, or an industry that's underperforming, and we do something different to the norm. And not that I know a lot about the automotive industry at all, but it was one of these things where I was thinking, I don't know that there's been much advancement. If you take away going online and the ability to build a car online and then get a pricing and quoting and things like that, which is natural evolution, keeping somewhat with the times, the process of buying a car where you will walk into a showroom or a show lot, you'll stroll around for a wee bit, someone will come and ask if they want to help you, and then the process will start. I don't know that that's evolved so much, and I wonder how much of that is motivation, where they're saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's just the way things are done. Or if there's something else to it. What's your opinion on that?
No, so believe it or not, it has evolved. There are companies that have put the tools out there. They're called digital retailing tools that
Right,
allow you to do the entire process until you go get the car to sign the
right,
paperwork and pick it up, called digital retailing tools. And companies like Cox Automotive, some of the bigger companies, CDK, bigger companies in the space, built those tools back probably as early as 2012, 2014, 2015, and started introducing them.
yeah,
Nobody used them until the pandemic.
mm,
So digital retailing tools became, a lot of people, the dealers had to start to adapt because now people were not allowed to walk into their stores. So they had to do everything online. So, the industry has transitioned and there are these tools in place, but there's, and there are some dealers that are very progressive and they want to create a good experience and they're very transparent.
mhm,
And then there's old school dealers that want to keep everything a secret and they want to keep that upper hand and make you feel like you don't know what you're doing and just try and get over it. And it's on different parts of the deal. So one of the things that we teach is there's basically four parts to the deal and keep them separate. The
yeah,
dealer is going to want to, they're going to ask you, what do you want your payment to be? You know, do you have a trade in? And it's important to not give them all the information when they want it. You give it to them when you're ready. So,
right,
the first part of buying a car is what car do I want to get? So
yeah,
we have a course on how to figure out what you want if you're not sure,
yeah,
and then how to figure out what the pricing should be for it, what would be fair, what you're willing to pay for it. So picking out your car, what you're willing to pay for it, what it may be, what incentives might be available from the manufacturer, understanding that part first.
yeah,
Then you bring your trade-in into play. So the first question, when they ask, what are you trading in? I always advise them, I'm not sure I'm trading in. Work the deal on what you want to buy first. You
yeah,
know, then you bring the trade-in into play. And we have a whole course. Well, it's a lesson, but it's one of 20 some odd lessons in our courses, you know, but it's one of the most important lessons of all on understanding how the dealer values the trade-in and how to prepare your car and understand all the different things they look at and what's important, and the tools that are available to you online for valuing, getting a value trade. So once you have those two numbers figured out, you know, it's simple. I'm willing to pay this much for for the car I want to buy. This is what I think I should get on my trade-in. Now we have the next piece, which is the financing and
yeah,
the other things that they try and sell you.
yeah,
And you mentioned earlier about there not really being anybody out there to help with this. There, there is one main competitor for me out there that does try to teach people how to buy a car, but they have an ulterior motive. They also sell aftermarket warranties. They sell insurance. They sell that you when you're on their site, you become a lead for dealers. If you fill out any of their forms, they sell those leads to dealers.
yeah,
I don't do any of that.
yeah,
My only way I make money is if you buy my course.
yeah,
And I have no incentive from any aftermarket company, no manufacturers, no dealers. It's 100% me and my client. And like I said, so I have no incentive to push them in any one direction other than to teach them how to
yeah,
do it and
yeah,
to get the most for their money. So going back to the four pieces, all right, the car, your trade in. Now the next step, once you've decided those, is they put you in an office with a finance manager to figure out what the financing is going to be, and there your decisions could change from buying to leasing, or vice versa. So you want to kind of play with that too. We provide calculators on our website that
yeah,
allow you to play with the numbers so you know exactly, if I want to spend this much a month and my trade-in is worth this is the price for the car I need to shop for.
yeah,
Or if I'm going to buy a car that's this much and my trade is this much, this is what my payments are going to be. So you know all of that before you go into the dealership. And then the things they're going to try and sell you, the
yeah,
extended warranties, the gap insurance, the car insurance, the maintenance plans, the protection for your keys, for your tires. And it's different for everybody. I'd never say just say no to everything because someone might need some of those things. If you're leasing a vehicle, the expectation is that that vehicle is turned in perfect at the end of a lease, or they
yeah,
ding you with fees to fix
yeah,
things. So it may pay to buy tire or wheel protection because everybody burns a wheel on a curb, and they're expensive to repair or replace. And so everybody's situation is different. So that's what we teach you, is how to understand what all those aftermarket products are and is it good for your situation. And then the last piece is understanding the paperwork that they put in front of you once you've decided all of those things, and they turn that thing around, or now the tablet, and they say sign here,
yeah,
what's on there. And I know you're in Canada, I'm in the US, and I don't know the Canadian dealers, but in the US, in almost every state, there is a document fee on the buyer's order. And the states mandate it differently, but it's a set fee. It's different from state to state. It could be as little as $300-400. Some states it's $800-900, and that's one of the things that the dealer can't negotiate on, but it's
right,
on there. No one tells anybody about it. And they
yeah,
turn that around, and there's another $800 that you weren't figuring when you were playing with the calculator, right?
yeah,
And the year that I sold cars, people would turn that paper around, people would say to me, dock fee, what's that? I would say, oh, that's so the owner can dock his boat. brings a little bit of levity to the situation. But
Yeah.
seriously, it's it's just another piece that makes people feel insecure about, am I getting ripped off? So
Yeah.
understanding that when that paper turns around, that doc fee is going to be on there, you can do your research for your state and know what it's going to be before you even walk into a dealership. So
Yeah.
like I said, basic thing is putting the shopper on a level playing field with the dealer, understanding what questions to answer and not answer, how to answer them, and keeping that deal separate into those four basic parts. And that's, you know, how we help people feel better about it. And like you said, make it not feel like you're going to the dentist.
Yeah. You know, it's what's really telling for me here, and I love the four parts of the process. I hadn't known them before, even through our conversations we'd had prior to recording. And so for me, there's two parts to this. There's the, if you pardon the pun, there's the mechanics of, the literal process of buying a car. And then there's human preference, human emotion, human, you know, strength, going in. Some people live and thrive in negotiations and the competition that creates. Other people wither away and shrivel down, and they're kind of thinking, I just don't want to do this. So how do you accommodate the the human emotional support through the education work that you do for people to be
Yeah.
prepared?
So there's, you brought up a good point that there's two kinds of shoppers, not just for cars, but for just about everything. There's the practical shopper that does all their homework and their research, and the
Yeah,
emotional buyer who
yeah,
just buys on, oh wow, I love it, I'm buying it.
yeah,
They're probably less likely to negotiate too because I want it. But we actually have a survey on our site that tells you, am I an emotional shopper or a practical shopper? You answer, I think it's, and how you feel about the car buying experience. I think it's 12 or 13 questions. And then from your responses, we tell you what type of shopper you are and give recommendations of how to deal with the dealer.
yeah, yeah. It's so important because, like, most of the times, I'm just trying to think here, most of the times I feel discomfort in my life. There's a lack of clarity. There's a lack of something that should be there that's not. Whether it's information, whether it's an understanding of the process, whether it's my knowledge of the people, the industry, whatever it is I'm going to be facing. And it sounds like what your courses do on every level is say, this is everything that you need to know. You can digest it as much as you want. You can retake the courses. You can familiarize yourself, before, during, and after the process, and see what your sweet spot is for that particular interaction, which is fabulous, because who truly wouldn't want that? Because I imagine, and I don't know this. Maybe you could explain it from your year in the actual direct sales part. There are so many. There are only so many different types of buyer. Now I know that you're saying there's the practical and emotional, but when someone walks into the room, what I've always noticed in the showrooms anyway is the more seasoned salespeople would say, this guy's a tire kicker. He's just in killing time. His wife is away somewhere, doing something, and he's just decided to come and just take a wee look at what's out there. He's got no intention of buying. There's another guy, he seems like he's quite serious. There's the family types. There's and they maybe have an opportunity to see what type and style of car that they've driven in with, and such like that as well. When you get that, like, what would you say would be the best way to present yourself, literally, as you're walking in the door as a buyer? And is that part of your education offering?
So, today, um, if some, well, let me take a step back. First thing I ever heard when I was selling cars was, well, we're not buying today. We're just out shopping.
Right.
So they're putting up their guard because they don't want to be sold, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and it's very different today than when I was in a dealership 20 years ago, because today with the internet, most people, 97, 98% of the people, I think the studies say, do all their homework online.
Right.
And then when they find the vehicle they want at the dealership that they want, and they've done their homework on the dealership and they have a good reputation, they're walking into that dealership to buy a car.
Yeah.
Okay. So in today's world, if they walk in, you can assume they're there to buy. If
Mhm.
they walk out, you as a dealer, you screwed up. You
Right.
didn't make them feel comfortable. They felt like you were trying to take advantage or untrustworthy. So it's very important for the dealer today to build that relationship, make the customer feel comfortable because they've, like I said, they walk in today, they've walked in to buy because you
Yeah.
have it. They don't just go to a dealership to look around anymore.
Yeah. So that's actually a great segue into preconceptions or misconceptions about the purchasing experience. What would you say in your experience is the most common misconception from both sides, from the buyer and from the seller perspective?
So, yeah, they perceive that most people don't know, right? And they're uneducated. I got a great, my sister's a perfect story. She bought a car about 3, 4 months ago, and
I remember
obviously she
this.
was educated, very educated on
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
She knew the exact car she wants. She was willing to drive 100 miles from her house in Long Island to a dealer that had the vehicle that she wanted. She didn't have to go that far, but she knew what the price of it was online, what discounts they had listed online, what the manufacturer incentives were. So she knew what that vehicle was going to cost her.
yeah,
She did all her homework. I helped her, of course, know what her trade-in value was worth, and you know was worth anywhere between 11.7. Well, gets there, and it's on a Sunday, and she says, "Hey, now my sister's a professional woman. She's a six-figure earner, smart
yeah,
lady. She's been a VP for the state of New Jersey in the Department of Transportation. She's with a big consulting firm now. So she's, not somebody that's not. She's very smart,
yeah,
smarter than me. So she lets them know, I I know everything, and they say, well, let's appraise your trade, and they come back and they tell her they're going to give her, I think it was $5,500 if I remember. So I'm at lunch with my grandkids and my daughter, and I get a text. They only want to give me 55 for the trade-in. What do I do? I said, you walk out. So she tells them she's leaving, and they came all the way up to like 10.5 just by saying she was walking out. $5,000 difference. It was
yeah,
crazy. She ended up getting closer to the 11, but that she got to the point where, 11 to 11.7, they were there.
yeah,
Um, but that didn't happen until she ended up finally leaving on Sunday and didn't put the deal together until Monday. I had told her, I said, you call the sales lady back and say, why, how come your boss doesn't want to sell me a car? I'm a lay down. I know
yeah,
exactly what I want to pay. I know exactly what my trade-in is worth. I know the financing, the whole deal. And the lady was like, yeah, well, we did. And she called back and said, we'll do the deal exactly as it was out. The same numbers that my sister walked in with on Sunday. And then when they gave her the paperwork, it was, she said something doesn't seem right because she had everything plugged into the calculator that we provide on our website.
yeah,
And there was a $2,000 difference. They were leaving out one of the incentives from the manufacturer, which she caught using the calculator when doing the paperwork, the final stage. They were trying to get over.
yeah,
She should have probably not bought a car from them at that point, but she was so frustrated with she even after that she was frustrated with the process, even knowing
yeah,
because it turned out it wasn't a very ethical dealer, obviously.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but she ended up getting the deal that the car she wanted, the pricing she wanted. So it's a shame that it has to be like that.
I agree, and it's interesting for me in preparation for our chat today, Lloyd. I was thinking, like, in my experience, I'm just assuming that there's some level of skullduggery that's involved where I'm certainly not going to win. I feel like I'm going to a casino. I don't gamble, but I feel like I'm going to a casino and I'm not walking out with the money that
Right.
that I walked in with, and I just have that conception. I'm very fortunate. I go to a dealer here. I drive Honda, and I go to a dealer here. I've been going to the same dealer the whole time. The process, talking about a laydown, the process is absolutely seamless. Where he messages saying, "Now is the prime time in terms of your lease coming up. At least
Right.
your lease coming up, and there's a new one coming in. I want you to get behind the wheel of this, see what you think, and then." It's seamless. I still go through the process of exactly what you were talking about earlier, sitting with the finance manager. I do certain upgrades to make sure that the car
Yeah.
is going to be in good shape at the end. But I always, like, I never walk away thinking I won, because that's not the transaction. That's not the transaction I'm having. I want a new car, and this is the number I'm willing to pay, and then go forward. Am I leaving a wee bit on the table? Possibly, probably. Is the process as seamless as I want it to be? Absolutely it is, because I am talking about earlier, when I walk in there, I am not walking out without a car. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not a window shopper or anything like
right.
that.
And the dealer's entitled to make money. My
Of
course
course.
doesn't teach you to like go beat the dealer to heck so that
Yeah,
they don't make any money. They have to be in business. We all work and do things to make money and earn a
yeah,
living, and they're entitled to it. But they don't have to make $10,000 on me and sell the same car to somebody and make $1,000.
yeah,
It should be fair for everybody, and you should feel good about it. So
yeah,
I think, and that's where the courses help understand. You can the information that I give in my courses. Like I said, 20 some odd lessons, and I have a free PDF that you can download, which gives you all of the titles of all of my lessons, and
yeah,
someone can find all that information online.
yeah,
But by using the course, I have it all together for you. You get access to have a call with me as
yeah.
part of it if you need be, and ask questions, and I evaluate what you're doing and help you along that way. So that's the big advantage of working with, me and the company, as opposed to trying to do it all yourself, because people don't know what they don't know. We put
Exactly.
it all together for you, and we consolidate all in one place to find everything. So,
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people would love that aggregated process, myself included. You know what I was thinking, and here's a bit of live online banter here, is it would be such a wonderful gift for someone who's coming up to or at driving age to say one of the first things, yes, you're going to learn how to drive, you're going to get your learners, you're going to get your driving license eventually, but early in your life, this is something that you're going to have to probably know at some point early in your life, we're going to teach you about this process, and you have access to this material and information in perpetuity after it's been purchased, and educate yourself on this. You might not be buying a car when you're 16, 17, 18, 19,
right.
but if you start to know, feel, absorb yourself in the process, then when you get to that spot, it doesn't become daunting. It doesn't become something where you're starting from scratch. I think that's a real opportunity, because I'm thinking my son Leo, he just recently got his driver's license. It was a private sale that we had, because he's in that market right now of just getting his first car, and
Right.
being able to travel around with himself and
So,
his friends and such. And there's that opportunity to really set the tone early, to say, this is, unless you're in a company where you get company vehicles and such, but let's just say the regular buyer, this is something that you're going to have to do. And you can do it a number of ways. You could do it uneducated and go in and fly by the seat of your pants. You might luck out and feel great about it, or you might go in and have a hell of a time and then feel disdain for this vehicle for the next 5 years,
yeah.
because you're like, oh, I remember that, and I just got shafted, but that's the emotional part that I'm talking about
Yeah.
again, where you get that. So I think there's a real opportunity to really get in at the foundation of people, and say, there's a different way to do this, and I've done all the work for you to aggregate everything you need to know.
It's funny you say that. Well, not funny, but you know, as I mentioned, we just launched in February. So
Yeah,
as of the time of this recording, that was 4 or 5 months ago.
yeah,
But our plan is to offer um, into universities so that they can make their graduating students or any of their students aware that we exist,
yeah.
offer university discounts through sign up plans to
Brilliant idea.
students, do the same thing with major corporations as a benefit. You know, as one of the benefits they offer is, you know, Lloyd's going to do a webinar for us and give us the high level, but if you want to work one on one and get his courses, here's the corporate discount.
Yeah,
Haven't gotten there yet from the marketing perspective, so I'm still working a full-time job,
yeah,
not much longer, hopefully.
yeah.
Um, so you can only do so much in a day. But those are some of our plans for getting ourselves out there here over the next 12 months.
Absolutely brilliant. I love it. I love the ingenuity of that, of trying to figure out the best market to penetrate, essentially, using some marketing speak for a second, but the best opportunity to create value, the best opportunity to create impact and have people, have people enjoy and not endure the process
Yeah,
by getting themselves educated at the same time. I absolutely, absolutely love it. So as you know, Lloyd, this is called the Best You interview series. So I always take this opportunity to ask every guest, what is one regular practice that you employ that gives you the best opportunity to be the best version of yourself?
awesome. So I learned this when I was at autotrader.com. We had a senior vice president who he was tough, but he was awesome. And he made us all the best we could be. And he asked us to instill three principles: TTT, SOS, and MIU. So TTT was tell the truth. You always tell the truth. And I always said that before I even worked at Auto Trader, because when you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said to anybody, because you're
Exactly.
always going to always say the same thing.
Yeah.
Second was SOS, simply outrageous service. Again, something that was always in my core, because when I had my aftermarket business, I always worked with high-end dealerships: Porsche, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, so had to provide incredible service to be able to maintain a business with that level of customer. And then MIU is mediocrity is unacceptable. And that one's just awesome. It's like,
Yeah.
don't, always just try and get the best you can out of yourself. So
Yeah.
those are the three principles that, even though I was probably following them before I worked at Auto Trader, now they have tags on them: TTT,
Yeah.
SOS, and MIU.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I'm going to put that in the show notes for right now. That's absolutely fabulous. So we've talked about it quite a lot, but where can people find you and find out more about bestcardeals.com?
So that's right there, bestcardeals.com. Just note, we do not sell cars. We help people make it a good experience. So, that was the best car auto URL I could get. Originally, I had Lloyd Hecht Consulting, and I was talking to an automotive consultant, and he's like, "I love your idea, love your business, but your URL sucks." And he happened to own bestcardeals.com, and he said, "I'll give it to you." So people
Wow.
mistake it and think that we sell cars. So we have to stress in our marketing, we don't sell cars. We're not the bad guy.
Yeah.
We're the
Yeah.
good guy trying to help you make it a good experience and understand how to work with. And I'm not saying the dealers are not bad guys, but like I
Yeah.
said, there are some out there that still want to just try and take advantage, unfortunately. But so bestcardeals.com. I'm on LinkedIn if you want to see my personal background. I don't advertise there because my whole automotive network is there, the ones that probably wouldn't like my business. But you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram.
I love it. Lloyd, I knew this was going to be an education and a wonderful experience. I've had an absolute blast. Thank you very, very, very much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for doing this. This was fantastic. I love it. Glad you asked. Thanks for having me.